Everyone. Hello, everyone. Good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're connecting from. My name is Sandra Uko. I'm a Master Leadership Certified Team Member, Coach, Speaker, and Trainer. I'm a member of the Toastmasters as a Vice President of Public Relations and an Area Director, a best-selling author, an IT sales expert of over 20 years, and just recently got gifted the Presidential Lifetime Award. And I have a great guest with me who will be sharing a story, but this has been a long waited interview that should have been done maybe last year. But I guess there's something much more to it. And I'm glad I have her today. I have Kishiba with me. She's no other person than a friend I met in Toastmasters, and she's been an inspiration to me. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring her on board. And I'm sure you'll be like, why making a difference every day? It's called MADE, an acronym of making a difference every day. We are all called that to make a difference in our world. Everyone God created a uniqueness in each and every one of us. How boring would it be having everyone look like Sheba? Everybody's like Sheba, or everybody's like Sandra. But God, has given each and every one of us different talents and giftings that makes us unique in our calling, in our field. And so today, we'll be talking about how you're making a difference in your world and why we need to dare to make a difference in our world so that the world itself can be a better place for everyone. So the floor is all yours, Kishiba. So we're excited to have you. Welcome, 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 welcome. The floor is yours. I'd like to know you better, your name, what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sandra, for the opportunity. I am Kushibra Latash. I am originally from Memphis, Tennessee. I now currently reside in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been here, I want to say almost 11 years. This was not my choice. I am the mother of five, and I am also the eldest of five girls. And so I'm real big on family oriented in any and all things that I have my hands in. And so I was very fearful, and I'm very careful how I use that word, but I was very fearful of stepping outside of my original neighborhood, how I was raised. I was actually fearful because all I knew was my family in Memphis, Tennessee. I didn't know anything else. So I did not travel. I didn't get a chance to experience a lot of things when I was younger. And so when it was time for me to move, this was the moment I realized that I needed to make a decision, and not just me saying that I love God, but am I willing to obey God? And so it was me and my four girls. My son was still in Memphis, and it was scary. And so here it is, me having to make another decision as a mom, me taking four of my children, which I've raised all of them together, and have to leave my son in Memphis with his father. And making that decision honestly was one of the best decisions I've made in my life. Of course, my obedience to God, but yet my obedience to God has opened up so many doors, and not just doors, but also windows, not just for me, but others who are connected to me, and also my children, which I think is very, very imperative to the decisions that we make in our everyday life. So currently, I am a vision coach and also a visionary to the visionary. I know you don't hear much about vision coaches, but we are needed. It's almost like a pastor needing another pastor, a coach needing another coach. We as visionaries, we need each other. I tell everybody I don't just speak English, but I speak Visionese. And it's mainly because I'm open to hear what you're saying to me, but I'm also open to hear what God is saying to me. And so a lot of times we have so much vision, so many different ideas, so many dreams that we have them all stuck in our head, also in our heart, but we struggle to get it in our hands. And so as a consultant, that's what I do. I don't do anything special. I don't believe I do, but I work in multiple areas to help you with your vision and bring in clarification, and also some type of comfort and you knowing that you're not crazy. You're just a creative. And so sometimes in those moments, we need someone on the other side to say, it's okay. It's okay to breathe through it. And you will know that it's all God that's been giving you all these visions. And the biggest thing I tell people when I work with them is if God is giving you all those visions, God trusts you. And everybody can't say that. to say you're in a position where God trusts you with the babies, because I call vision babies. I look
Mm.
at vision as children. When I look at my children, multiple children, each one of them have their own purpose in life. They have their own vision according to what God has given to them. Now they all work together in the vision that He's given to me for the family, but they have individual responsibility as well. So I had to learn how, as a visionary, to be a visionary to them, and also to a runner to their vision as well. So even with that can be a whole lot, but it's something that I'm very passionate about. I love teaching. I love being in that space where I can do research and help individuals find what sometimes we feel like we don't have access to. But I believe it has a lot to do with community and knowing who's in the room.
Yeah, awesome, awesome, awesome. I love what you said, and said you spoke about we all sum total of our decisions. All the decisions we make is what make us. So, and sometimes I tell people, if you don't like the way your life is going, then check the decisions you're making. If the decisions are not right, you can go back on the drawing board, get them right so that you can start seeing yourself in the right parts. That's awesome.
Yes.
So, whilst doing all this, with the time you find it very difficult to continue, and you thought of like, is this my calling? Is there something else I'm meant to do? And how did you maneuver? How did you get through it? Did you think of saying, okay, I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to wait for God to speak to me. And if he doesn't speak, I'm not going to make a move. Were there times you had difficult moments?
Yes, I've had a lot of difficult moments where I didn't just want to give up, but not just throwing the towel. I wanted to make sure I didn't have not one towel inside of my home, to make sure I just threw in all of the towels because I was so tired and exhausted. But being the eldest of five, I had a lot of responsibilities, and I took on a lot of responsibilities that were not mine. And as I became an adult, I continued to do a lot of those different things. And it rolled over into my motherhood, and even as adulthood, also in ministry. And so I knew how to do a lot of things, but a lot of those things were I was not supposed to do. And so it brought on a lot of confusion. It brought a lot of questions I had, and I took those to God because I was grateful that I was gifted. I was grateful that I was talented, but I didn't understand what I was supposed to use. And though from those areas of me growing up the way that I did, how was it going to be impactful for me, and thinking about legacy and of course my children, and being the parent of five children. See, I was the one, I didn't play house. So I wasn't the one saying I was one of the husband and children and all of those things, right? God trusted me. And so I had to learn the hard way. And when man told me that I couldn't have children, God blessed my womb. And so not only having one, I had multiple children. And so in the midst of that, he just allowed me to see that he trusts me with so much more. But the struggle that I had is I didn't trust myself. I'm going to let that sit for a minute. I didn't trust myself. And a lot of times that's why we struggle with making decisions, because we actually hold ourselves in a mental prison because we've made one mistake in one decision, if not multiple, and we forget that God is a forgiving God. And so I had to learn to forgive myself, of course, repent and receive God's forgiveness and walk in it. But I remember being that one was a dreamer, was I would see all these different visions, and that's what allowed me to hold on with the things that I actually went through, with the trauma I went through, all different types of abuse, all the neglect, the rejection. I experienced all those different things, and that's all I knew. That was the language that I knew. But my vision always connected me something that was bigger, right? Something that was more. That's what I held on to. Not sure if you remember, there was this commercial years ago called, it was a Calgon commercial. And in the commercial, the lady was like, Calgon, take me away. And that's what I used to hold on to in that moment. Like one day, something is going to come and just take me away from all of this. This is just too much responsibility. But in the midst, I became the first partaker of so many different things, of the words that the different things that I saw, the words that I would actually see in my vision. And I began to start praying and asking God for direction, Didn't have a relationship during that time. I just was a witness to my granny's faith life, right? Her journey with God. And I saw those things. God did not only hear her prayers, but God answered her prayers. So I was like, wait a minute, that looked like that's working. And so I remember being in ministry. Here I am teaching, doing all these different things. And God gave me this vision of creating this community. And the name he gave me was All Visions. And so All Visions is an acronym for Anointed Led with Life, Victorious Individuals Soaring in on Natural Spirits. I didn't have a clue what that meant. I just knew that God gave it to me. But I later on realized that All Visions was a space where, of course, it started with me, but it was a space and yet a community. And this is the greater part where all visions were able to be a part. It meant it didn't matter where you're from, how you grew up. It doesn't matter if you had a vision for ministry for marketplace. It didn't matter what your vision was. It could be a vision for your own personal life. Because I realized as a coach, sometimes we don't even know where we're going, right? And then more so than anything, we don't even know where we are in order for us to create that path as far as where we're going. And so I remember being in this space, and during this time God allowed me to create this curriculum, and I had to follow the curriculum. I wasn't just creating it for others. God was showing me that you have to follow this because you're the first partaker, so you're going to be the one that's going to share with others where they can get a chance to see that you're not just talking about it work, they see it working in your life. And then here it is, tragedy happens. But in the midst of that, I remember getting this horrible phone call. And here I am trying to find out who I am, who God created me to be. I know all these things I'm excited about. I'm looking forward to ministry, marketplace, 20 plus cosmetologists. So I have all these different certifications, all of these things. And then I get a call about my son. And here I am, the mother of 5, now the mother of 4. And so I'm lost for words. Lost for words. I don't know because I didn't see this part of my life, right? I didn't see this part as far as me moving forward after having to bury my first child. Now, this is the child that God gave me when I wanted to commit suicide because I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel a reason for living. I didn't feel that I could actually go beyond existing, right? To know what it really felt like to live this life. And why would I, after all the abuse and all the things that I went through? And I believe that in his transition gave me the strength and a renewed meaning. And also my faith had to be renewed as well because of his transition. In the midst of that, I didn't understand any. He had a tattoo on his left hand that said, "Life goes on." And so in that moment, I could hear his voice say to me, "Ma, that's what you do. Even though you went through all that you've gone through, you speak life into individuals, even when they are at their wit's end, when they want to give up. You're the one that's able to speak life back into them. So you give them the opportunity that they've been waiting for. Know that they don't have to have permission from you, but sometimes we feel like we want to have that affirmation, that's something from somebody to let them know it's okay to live. It's okay to move forward." And he said, "That's what you do." So his father and I decided to donate his gifts, and 4 people who were on their deathbed were able to live again. And so I have taken that. I'm a part of the second part of my life, yet as a sign from God. Even, yes, I went through the tragedy, but the great thing is I'm coming out. And it's a continuation because grief doesn't come the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stages. Sometimes they come 3, sometimes they jump back to 1, sometimes they go as far as 5. But let me tell you the most powerful part about my journey. I got a therapist way before this happened. Right. And because I got a therapist, because I had community, I had individuals, there would be times, even though they saw my strength and my leadership, there were times that I could just yell, scream. I could actually just say words and didn't know what I was saying, but they gave me a place of comfort. They gave me a place of support. And I've just learned to be that for others. And so when I look at ministry in the marketplace, he was right. That's what I do. So now I not only have the memories of my son, but I have multiple sons now, right? I've gotten a chance to meet 2 of the individuals who received the gifts. God is amazing. No, that was not a part of the story that I wrote. right? But that was a part of the story that God has for me. And so my life has expanded. And so here it is. Now I'm looking at creating a foundation for others who feel some kind of way, who've never experienced that love, don't know what it's like to live beyond. They just know what it's like to just exist. What does that space look like to have community or a home of individuals that is there to love you and support you and say, it's okay to live? It's okay. We all have
Yeah.
an interesting, a shady past is what I call it, right? But there's a story connected to each one of our stories. It's on you as the writer because God is the author and finisher of all things, right? And
Yeah.
so we're the writer of our story. So I always ask, people like, what's your story? Let's talk about your story because we all have one. But I decided, again, that decision I decided through all that I went through is I wanted to live, that I was no longer going to survive. I was no longer going to be in that space, but I was going to go from surviving to thriving, and I was going from existing to living. And so that's what space that I'm in now, for me to be in a place to be as an example to say, listen, I did it. Some people don't believe it when they see me and I'm talking, but honestly, 6 years ago, I did not, as much as vision I have, as much as I pray for people, as much as I've seen God, miracle signs and wonders, all of that. When I experienced that with my son, I felt like my heart was taken out of my body. I never felt in past that moment that I would be able to even want to live. I didn't have an interest. I didn't even know what my heart would look like. But God has restored my heart. I'm able to love again and able to receive again. But I had to be open to receive the community that God had for me, not what the people that I chose, because God and I knew that I wasn't making the right decision. And a lot of times I was trauma bonding. And so I decided to go through my healing, sit down, and God was basically teaching me it's okay to rest. You're resting in me. And so learning how to rest in God allowed me to get what I needed in order for me to move forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. So great to know. And like I would often tell everyone, is you must rest in God, as in giving him the right of place to helping you. Excuse me. As there is no one is self-made. We're all helped by God. So the difference between every one of us is the different graces we have, the help we get from God. That makes us to stand out in that makes us to stand out in every of our pain. So I want to
Yes.
say that God has a purpose for you. And like I ever will tell people that we all have a journey and we must go through our journey. And that the journey you
Yes.
endure is the journey you will go through. But if you enjoy the moment, because there'll be down and up moments, but they're actually not meant to make you, they're just meant to shape you. And they're only there for momentarily, just for a while. And so if you're able to go
Right.
past that stage, you're an example. And that's why I would tell people, I said, we are we are an example to the world. The world is watching us, they're looking at us. They were called out to
Mhm.
be a testimony. We're called out to stand out. So what we go through is not just for ourselves, but for the people coming behind us, so that we're
Yes.
able to share experience,
Yes.
so that our shoulders can be shoulders that they can ride on to get on to where they ought to
Yes.
be. So I would say that's a strong word. You were strong. I'll tell you, I'm sure it's the grace of God that's made you be able to go through your
Okay. Yes.
because I'm like losing a son is a lot. Is a lot.
Oh yeah.
What happened to
Yeah.
him? Was he sick or something?
He was actually in a drive-by. He was standing outside with his cousins at that time. I later found out it was, of course, not towards him, but I just learned in that moment that your community matters, right? Who you are around, it matters, and that's one of the things that I'm very big on now. I've learned so much from that, right? And so I was actually in Georgia during that time. Actually,
Yes.
I was on my way to Memphis because for 3 years I had lost custody of my children.
Wow.
And I was in an abusive relationship during that time, and I was so weak. I lost who I was. As strong as I was, everybody in my family, people, everybody that knew me knew I was so strong, so strong. But in that moment, I realized when someone comes in to strip you from your strength and tell you everything opposite of what you've been hearing, basically just to almost like beat you down so you don't move forward. And so that happened. I was struggling and going through that at the time that I went through with my son. So I had lost my fight. I lost my vision. I just feel like I had lost in life, and
Everything.
to get hit with that. And then here I am on my way to fight, because I've learned how to fight I mean, no, let me go back. Now, I've always knew all my life how to fight physically. You didn't have to teach me how to do that. I had to learn how to fight spiritually, right? And fight with my faith. So God used those 3 years to teach me how to fight with my faith, because I had to realize that how I handled this situation was way bigger than that current moment. And so as I was on my way to Memphis, that when I got the call, 2 hours out from Memphis, and when I got the call about my son. And then when I made it, my son was DOA. So I knew my son was gone because I could no longer feel his heartbeat. When I made it to the hospital, this lady stopped me and said, "Can you pray for my sons?" There were two other young men that got shot. A little, probably about 20, 30 minutes after my son. My son was the only one that transitioned. I prayed for them. They walked out. So here I am feeling some kind of way, yet I'm that strong one in the family. And honestly, this was my first time going through that. I had never experienced that. So I really didn't know what to do, what to feel, I really didn't know. I just knew that it was very imperative how I handled this situation. I knew others were watching, but more so than anything, I wanted to lay him to rest, but also be able to hear what God was saying to me during those times, because he wasn't a bad child at all. You see what I'm saying? He wasn't. He just
The
cried out.
environment is
Yeah, he just wanted so much more. He wanted that father's love, like certain things he was crying out for. And here I am praying for him. And so it gives my heart peace knowing that he is back with his heavenly father. And
true.
so it's been an easy journey, but his father and I, we didn't get along during that time, but now we do. And so it's just amazing. Sometimes when you get to a place when you learning how to put your weapons down, because that's what I had to learn how to do, is put my weapons down. And my mouth was one of them. Right. And so I had to learn that I'm either uplifting or I'm tearing down. I have to make a decision in that. And so I decided to uplift. And so those words that I shared during those times were the words that some of my family members had to hold on to. They didn't know anything else because this was new for them as well. And so I was quiet for about 4 years. My children used to wonder, "Mom, did it even bother you?" Because I didn't know how. I didn't know how to handle it. But because God allowed me, and I tell people all the time, be careful when people say, "Oh, I went through that." I'm like, are you still in it or are you out? Because when you're out, your testimony is totally different, right? Your tone is totally different. Your posture towards God is totally different. And so not only God brought me through it, but God brought me out so I can be able to be that testament to others to say, listen, I'm not just telling you what the Bible say, right? Like I am a
I felt
living
it.
epistle
I
to
went
that.
through
Like
it.
I could actually listen, I can tell you I went through it and God brought me out. And I have a smile on my face. And here I am willing to encourage and empower anybody else that's feeling that way to let you know, no, you're going to live because there's breath in your body and God has a greater purpose for you, and not just for you, but for your family and those who are connected to you. So you are required to live. I believe in you. And sometimes we have to take those moments and begin to speak life back into individuals because they may not be as strong as you are. And so, yeah, it wasn't my strength. It was all God's
Listen,
strength, because
yes,
when I
yes.
went through that
You could
resting
have done it
time,
on your
I was
own.
like, my God, that was not me. But I love God for loving me. I love God for loving me, even when I was unlovable, when I didn't want to hear Bible scriptures, when I didn't want to hear all that church stuff. I didn't want to hear all of that because my heart was hurt,
Yeah.
right? I had a lot of questions I was going through. I didn't want to hear all that. But when I tell you God was patient with me, God didn't pull me through. God was patient with me. When I cried, I can feel God's presence. When I fuss, I can feel God's presence. When I whine, when I complain, I can feel God's presence. God allowed me to see that every tear, every emotion that I was dealing with, every feeling that I was feeling, everything was valid. And so to know that I would do anything outside of serving an amazing God like that, there's no way.
No
There,
way.
God has been the only consistency in my life. And I don't want anything outside of that.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And that's the only person we have. Like I often would tell people, we are made for our calling. When we understand purpose, God secures and keeps the purpose in us. Not because God
Yes.
wants to keep us, but because of his purpose in us, meaning that you have a
Yes.
purpose, and that purpose is what God is securing, even in spite of it all. Losing your son, you were sick, God kept you. God gave you the fortitude and the grace to go through your journey. And that's why I
Yes.
often would tell people there are three things that makes you: the resources that you allow inside of you, the people that
Yes.
speak into your life, and the environment you grow. If you want someone to grow well,
Yes.
then you provide that amiable family environment, that loving environment.
Hmm.
But when you have an environment that's mixed, and you know that environment will always affect the person. That's why when you have plants in an environment that is not right, the plant grows stunted.
Yes.
But when the same thing happens to a man, when you have a person in an environment that's not right, the person also goes through that pain. And I want to say, encourage you. I also want to give you my hands that this can only be God. This can only be God.
Oh,
Very inspiring story that you went through it and you still all smiles, still very strong. This shows that this cannot be any other person but God that has kept you
oh
and taken you
yes.
through the fire. Even though you went through the
Yes.
fire, you were in bonds, you went through the rivers didn't consume
Mhm.
you because God was
Yes.
bigger in you. I want to say thank you
Yes.
for your words. Your words are, I got inspired, and I'm sure a lot of people who would hear your story would also be inspired. And that's why I tell people your story is just the most unique way to connect with everyone.
Yes.
That's why I said everyone has a story. Everyone has been through different things. And that's why I tell people too that sometimes your experience is meant to be in a book so that people can
Yes.
learn to read from you, so that when you're no longer there, people can read your story, how you went through life and how you stayed
Hmm.
strong. So I want to
Yes.
thank you. I also want to thank you for your strength, the strength of God in you that has caused you to stand out. And you're still
Oh,
standing, you're still smiling. That's a great one. That's a great
yes.
one. So I want to thank
Thank you.
everyone who are on this show. Thank you so much for being on this show. And if you want to reach out to Kishiba, she's going to drop her content and our details with me. I'm going to put it on maybe a links at our website. You can always reach out to her, maybe for consultation. You want to share with her, whatever you're going through. But her story is such a great one that everyone should hear. And she's still going with her shoulders high, with smiles. And that's the way we ought to be. Thank you so much for your time. But before we call it a day, what will be your last statement, your parting words for our viewers who have been on this show? What would be that word?
Thank you so much again. But I want to share this in my story. In what I've shared thus far, because there are multiple pieces to it. But most of the time, we're so focused on purpose as this great big thing that we have to keep pulling these pieces together. And sometimes when we make a mistake and we're not sure if we got this and we got to do this and we got to do that. And I want you to just breathe, okay? And let me share with you the amazing part about purpose. When there's a purpose on your life, right? You acknowledge that purpose is in you. Okay. One of my friends says it this way. I was in a space, we were talking about gifts, and he said, I think one of the things that we miss is we are the gift. Instead of just focusing on just the multiple gifts, we are the gift. When every good and perfect gift comes from God, we are the gift to the world. And so, even in the midst of me not focusing on the great big purpose of all I went through, there was purpose inside of every moment that took place. And even with the tragedy with my son, there were two other young men that were able to walk out alive, right? There was a mother who was able to go home with her son. I won custody as far as my children. Me and my son's father was able to reconnect, right? So there are so many greater things that happen. I know in that moment, yeah, I was focusing on that and I couldn't see it. So my last words and final words to you is I want you to, in those moments, stop and take a deep breath. Okay. Because sometimes when our mind is going, we can't really hear, we really can't see clearly. So after you take for one, first exhale, right? Breathing out all the anxiety, all the worry, all of those different things that you've actually put on yourself. You've carried all the extra, all of that. But I want you to breathe in God's goodness, God's faithfulness, God's awesomeness, God's love towards you. And I want you to repeat that at least 2 to 3 times to get you back into a space so you can hear and you can see. Most of the time when we are going through the different things we're going through, there are keys in that situation that's going to give you access on down the line. But if we're so caught up in our emotions, we'll miss what God is saying. And so I want you to take those moments and breathe so you can hear clearly, because I promise you that key is going to unlock something in your next. And whoever is on the other side waiting for you, remember, you have to make the decision, right? Because they're waiting for you because of your amazing story, because of how you have come through all these different things. Yes, I know it was hard, but there are others like myself in yourself who are out here who have an amazing story, and the world is awaiting to hear from you. My stories have turned into some amazing opportunities for others to be a part of my community. And so if we are in this space, myself and even Miss Sandra, we are just like you, those individuals who have an amazing and mighty story that the world is waiting to hear. And so listen, I ask you this question: what's your story? Because I know you have an amazing one. Until then, you be encouraged and you continue to be empowered through it all, even the ups and the downs, because some kind of way they're going to work out for your good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're
I want
welcome.
to say thank you to our viewers and everyone who go on this show with us. I want to also encourage us to go out there to be a difference maker. Let's all dare to make a difference in our world. If we do that, the world itself will be a better place to stay. Thank you so much and do have a blessed evening. Bye, everyone.
Are you thinking of how to publish your book on Amazon or how to get your published book to become an Amazon bestseller book? Dip Insight Books is the perfect in-between solution in transforming your ideas into a book. We can help you with all the complicated parts of publishing, such as process TO transformation. What we do: full manuscript evaluation, receive quality assurance edit, full copy edit and final proofread to remove spelling and grammar mistakes, oversee your cover design, create your interior layout, publish and distribute your book, lock down your marketing strategy. Ghostwriting, where there is no manuscript. Our goal is to help you publish your book promptly. Contact us today at 404-740-9091. Email us at info@dipinsightworld.com. To start the submission process, check us out at www.books.dipinsightworld.com and submit your details. You can visit our Facebook page at Dip Insight World.
If you've made it this far into this video, thank you for watching. And don't forget to subscribe so you can support your girl. Thank you.